At 4 p.m. on a Friday, a tech CEO decided to publicly fire his senior accountant.
You are done, Sarah. 6 weeks you've wasted chasing a closed audit. Pack your things.
He doesn't know what's on my monitors right now.
40 coworkers froze. The whole floor held its breath.
The only things I need are this pad and this drive.
The legal pad was covered in red pen diagrams, arrows pointing to one name, Brandon Callahan. "Miss Lawson, I need you to come with me." She walked through the cubicle gauntlet without a word. No one dared meet her eyes.
And don't bother coming back for your personal items. We'll mail them.
Outside, she clutched the pad and drive. 11 months of evidence. $80 million. And the SEC hadn't seen a single page. As she walked across the empty parking lot, past the reserved spaces of executives who'd just watched her be destroyed, she unlocked her car and slid inside, the silence pressing in like a held breath.
They think I'll disappear quietly.
From the glove compartment, she took out a personal laptop, one the company's IT department had never touched. The thumb drive clicked into the USB port, and her evidence cascaded onto the screen. 11 months of vendor payments routed to a phantom company in the Cayman Islands. She organized the files methodically, even now. The trail led undeniably to one man, Brandon Callahan.
Patrick's brother. He's been stealing from his own company for years.
Her resolve hardened. She opened a new browser tab and navigated to the SEC whistleblower portal. The login screen appeared, cold and bureaucratic. A blinking cursor awaited her credentials. This was the moment, one click to send the evidence. One click to become the woman who took down a CEO. She typed in her credentials with fingers that never trembled. Though her heart pounded, the portal accepted the upload. A single line appeared. Submission successful. Then she opened her personal email and addressed a message to the senior auditor at the outside accounting firm. Subject: You urgent 80M fraud trail. Attachment: 11 months of shell company payments. She hit send, closed the laptop, and drove home as the weekend swallowed her silence. Monday morning, 7:14 a.m. The senior auditor opened his email and his coffee froze mid-sip. He scrolled through the attachments, then grabbed his phone and called the lead engagement partner. By 8 a.m., an SEC investigator in Washington logged into the whistleblower intake system. A new case file glowed on her screen, flagged with a red exclamation, "Imminent financial harm." She opened it, read the first summary page, and typed 3 words, "Open full investigation." At 9 a.m., the quarterly board meeting convened via video. Patrick Callahan sat in his office, a polished investor deck glowing on his screen.
I am pleased to report our strongest quarter yet. Revenue up 12%, margins expanding.
Evelyn Harper, the lead independent director, watched from her Chicago study. She noted his confidence with a seasoned eye. A private instant message from the auditor popped up on her second monitor. She opened the attachment. The SEC notice read, "Formal investigation into $80 million in fraudulent vendor payments routed through a Cayman entity to Brandon Callahan."
Patrick, stop. The SEC issued an investigation this morning. It's about Brandon. $80 million, Patrick.
That's absurd. Brandon doesn't have access.
We're in emergency recess. 1 hour, board only. I'm closing the call.
The screens cut to black. In 9 different cities, the board members sat motionless, staring at the empty grid where Patrick's face had been. Exactly 1 hour later, Evelyn Harper shared her screen. The SEC notice filled every director's monitor.
The whistleblower provided 11 months of documentation. The payments led to a single beneficiary, Patrick's brother.
This is a witch hunt. Someone on that floor had a grudge and doctored files. I'll find out who.
Not a single director defended him. The silence hollowed out his rage.
I am calling a vote. All in favor of placing Patrick Callahan on immediate paid leave, pending full investigation.
Hands lifted in unison, from New York, London, and the digital squares of directors miles apart. Every single one.
Patrick, security is at your door now. Please go peacefully.
In his office, Patrick slammed his laptop shut so hard the screen cracked. Then the knock came. "Mr. Callahan, you need to leave the building." Now, by noon, the board released a statement announcing the leave and full cooperation with the SEC. The company's stock began its plunge. 3 days after the board's announcement, federal agents walked into the company's finance floor with a warrant. They seized servers, digital records, and even the yellow legal pad from Sarah's locked desk drawer. Early the next morning, in a quiet suburb, Brandon Callahan answered his door to find handcuffs waiting.
What is this? I haven't done anything wrong. Call my brother.
The FBI walked him out in front of his neighbors. A camera flash caught his white, panicked face. By evening, the front page screamed, "Fintech fraud. CEO's brother indicted in $80 million scheme." Sarah watched the news from her apartment, a cup of cold tea forgotten on the armrest.
It's really happening. The man who called my audit a waste of time, his brother in handcuffs. But why hasn't the board called? Do they even know it was me?
She was the whistleblower, but to the company so far, she was just a fired auditor. No one had reached out. By Tuesday evening, the board's outside counsel had traced the whistleblower submission to a personal email account registered to one Sarah Lawson.
Patrick fired the exact woman who could bury him. His arrogance just handed her the victory.
Without hesitation, she picked up her phone and dialed the number from Sarah's personnel file.
Miss Lawson, this is Evelyn Harper from the board of directors. I know who you are. What's this about? I owe you an apology for what happened. The board wants to meet and discuss your role in uncovering the fraud. I'll meet, but I am bringing my attorney. No more blindsiding. Understood. Thursday morning, 10 a.m., at our legal counsel's office. I'll send the details.
After hanging up, Sarah sat motionless, then dialed Patricia Chen, the litigator who'd handled every corruption case in the city. Thursday morning, she'd walk into that building again, with her attorney, her evidence, and the power to decide her own future. At 10 a.m., Sarah walked into the legal counsel's conference room, with Patricia Chen beside her. The board members fell silent.
I've prepared a summary of the fraud trail. Let's walk through the vendor payments.
She connected her laptop. A diagram of shell companies and wire transfers filled the main screen. For the next 40 minutes, she traced every payment from the company's treasury to the Cayman account, with Brandon Callahan's approval codes in plain view.
Miss Lawson, the board is deeply impressed and deeply sorry for what occurred under Patrick's watch.
Evelyn slid a manila envelope across the polished table. Inside was a formal employment contract.
We are offering you the position of Chief Audit Officer with a salary of $400,000 and full back pay to the date of your termination. $400,000. But I can't just step back into that building. Something shifted in me. This is a generous offer. I need to consider it with my attorney. You'll have my answer in a week.
She placed the envelope in her bag, nodded to Miss Chen, and walked out. Not as a fired accountant, but as the woman who held all the cards. That evening, Sarah met with her attorney at a quiet downtown office. The lawyer had one more piece of news. The SEC whistleblower program entitles you to between 10 and 30% of recovered funds. For $80 million, that's 8 to 24 million. Sarah stared at the regulation. The number could change everything.
This isn't just vindication. It's fuel for what I really want to build.
She requested and received temporary access to the company's vendor diversity records. The board, eager to please, complied within hours. She filtered by minority ownership classification. The result was a column of zeros for nearly every category.
Over $1 billion in vendor spend, and they've locked out every Black, Latino, and women-owned business. Systematically.
She cross-referenced the exclusion pattern with the fraudulent vendors. They were all white-owned shell companies. The system was rigged top to bottom.
My firm won't just catch fraud. It'll audit the entire system that locked out people who look like me.
The board's offer sat unanswered on her countertop. She was already drafting a business plan for a forensic practice dedicated to minority vendor justice. On the 7th day, Sarah requested a private meeting with Evelyn Harper. No attorney this time.
You've made your decision about the offer. I am not coming back, Evelyn. I am launching an independent forensic practice. I won't pretend I'm not disappointed. But I respect it deeply.
She slid the formal resignation letter across the polished wood. This time, she was leaving on her own terms. By the end of the day, She had registered the business with the state. Lawson Forensic Accounting. The firm's mandate was sharp: expose fraud and minority exclusion in private equity vendor systems.
No more taking orders from people who cover up theft. This firm is mine.
A week later, a sign painter finished the last gold letter on a glass door downtown. The board's offer was behind her. The name on that door was her future. 3 months later, the SEC finalized its case. The agency recovered $65 million of the stolen $80 million. An official notice arrived at her apartment. Her whistleblower award had been approved. The check was for $3.25 million, 5% of the recovered amount.
This is the seed money. Now I can build something that outlasts one case.
Within a week, she signed a lease for real office space and hired her first forensic analyst, a young black MBA from Howard, a Latina data scientist who'd testified against her former employer. By the end of the month, 4 desks were filled with analysts who'd been passed over by the same system she was fighting.
They're exactly who I need. People who know what exclusion looks like up close.
A private equity firm, reeling from a competitor's scandal, called for a preliminary audit. Lawson Forensic Accounting had its first client. The question that remained: what would they find? For 2 weeks, Sarah's team mapped every vendor in that private equity portfolio. The pattern was subtle at first. A consulting firm with a P.O. box address received millions, but its website was a single page with stock photos.
This is a ghost vendor. Look at the invoice numbers, they're sequential. Nobody does that.
They cross-referenced the payments with federal databases. The shell company led to a Belize account tied to the portfolio company's CEO. The total was $47.6 million over 18 months, a carbon copy of the Callahan scheme.
This is exactly the kind of rot my firm was built to expose. No more waiting.
She opened the SEC whistleblower portal for the second time. The evidence package was 54 pages.
This one is for every minority vendor who never got a chance to compete.
The report landed at the SEC's Enforcement Division at 3:17 a.m. Attached was a demand for parallel minority vendor data. Now they'd wait. The credibility of Lawson Forensic rested on what the SEC chose to do with 54 pages of truth. 10 days after the submission, SEC agents arrested the portfolio company's CEO outside a Manhattan office tower. The evening crawl on a financial news network read, SEC bust links Lawson Forensic Accounting to $47.6 million fraud.
They know our name now. This is what we built the firm for.
Within 6 months, a rival private equity firm, terrified of a similar scandal, commissioned Lawson for a full forensic audit. Once again, her analysts mapped a maze of phony vendors. The total was staggering: $90 million. Sarah filed her third whistleblower report to the SEC. This one was 98 pages, naming a Fortune 500 CEO. 4 weeks later, federal agents pulled that CEO from his corporate jet. Indictment: 22 counts of wire fraud, 2 CEO indictments in 12 months. The Wall Street Journal printed, Lawson Forensic, the firm that hunts CEOs.
2 down. But there are dozens of funds with the same broken vendor systems. We're just getting started.
Lawson Forensic had become a name no private equity CEO wanted to hear. But for Sarah, it was only the beginning. 18 months after her firm opened, a letter from the SEC arrived. She was to keynote the annual Whistleblower Symposium in Washington. The invitation cited her firm's contribution: 3 CEO indictments, $500 million in fraud exposed.
$500 million. But that's just what we've caught. The real number is 10 times that.
She prepared a speech that didn't celebrate. It demanded more minority-owned firms and forensic audits, more SEC resources, more accountability. At the symposium, she stood before a hall of investigators, attorneys, and survivors. The room went silent.
I was fired for chasing the truth. That truth was an $80 million fraud, and I am not done. Every case we take exposes a system that locked out people who looked like me. We will not stop until those systems break.
The audience rose. For 10 seconds, there was only the sound of hands striking together. The next day, the SEC published a report naming Lawson Forensic as a model for future whistleblower collaborations.
Platform secured. Now the hard part. Making sure the next case gets the same attention.
The invitation for a national interview came the following Tuesday.
Yes, I'll do the interview. But I am bringing something with me that I've never shown on camera.
She arrived at the studio carrying a simple wood frame. Inside was the original yellow legal pad.
This pad held the first 11 months of evidence. The same evidence that got me fired on a Friday at 4 p.m.
The host leaned forward. The control room went silent.
I traced 80 million to the CEO's brother. I was called a waste of resources. Now that brother is in prison.
Across the country, viewers watched a woman hold up a stained yellow pad and tell them the truth.
I am not going to stop until minority-owned businesses get the same access to contracts that shell companies got.
Within the hour, Lawson Forensics' phone system crashed from the volume of incoming calls.
This is the wave. Now I need to hire a bigger team. The next case won't wait.
Within the months that followed the interview, Lawson Forensic Accounting doubled in size. The office hummed with 50 analysts now. A second office opened in Atlanta. Staffed from the ground up by HBCU graduates, the sign outside read the same: Lawson Forensic Accounting. A quarterly impact report arrived at her desk. She opened to a chart that made her set down her coffee.
300% increase. The firms we audited are actually changing. They'll call it a trend. I call it proof that exclusion was the strategy all along.
But the wave didn't pause. Before the month ended, a third major whistleblower submission was underway. The trail started with a single shell company in Delaware, then branched to 4 offshore accounts and a CEO's personal trust. The name of the CEO was set to be the most powerful they'd yet named.
The higher we aim, the harder they'll push back. But that's the job now.
Her phone buzzed. The lead investigator from the SEC. The next stage of the fight was about to begin. That night, long after the last analyst left, Sarah sat alone in her corner office. She looked at the framed yellow legal pad on the wall, the original red pen notes still vivid.
That pad survived my firing, the SEC raid, and now it's hanging in a firm that hunts CEOs.
Beside it, a small glass case held the thumb drive, the one she'd clutched on the worst Friday of her life.
Everything started with that drive. Every indictment, every changed system.
Her phone lit up on the desk. Not the SEC line, a blocked number. She picked it up and listened. The voice on the other end was strained, quiet. The voice on the line was strained, cautious. Someone else had found something and didn't know where to go.
Tell me more.
The next case was beginning, and Sarah Lawson was already building its file in her head. A Friday at 4 p.m. A CEO's vein-bulging scream. A woman who didn't flinch. That woman walked out with a thumb drive and 11 months of truth from a car in a parking lot. She opened the SEC portal. One click. The board meeting that cracked. The brother in handcuffs. The headlines. Her face appeared on every screen. The pad went up on national television. The calls never stopped. Now a team of 50 follows her lead, and 300% more minority contracts exist where there were none. That original thumb drive sits encased in glass, next to a pad filled with red pen arrows. Sarah Lawson looks at them every night before she starts the next case. Fired for wasting time. Rewarded for saving the truth. The $80 million embezzlement trail that cost her job built a firm that's rebuilt the landscape. And the next call is already ringing. The blocked caller turned out to be a mid-level auditor who'd found invoices too consistent to be real. She was terrified. Within 3 days, Lawson Forensic had mapped the scheme. It was a mirror of the Callahan fraud. Shell companies, offshore accounts, a CEO's signature. The SEC acted in 11 days. Federal agents arrested the CEO on the steps of his own headquarters. The Wall Street Journal's morning edition carried the photo. The headline read, "Lawson Forensic claims fourth CEO." By the end of the quarter, the minority vendor report came in again. 340% increase across audited firms. More than 300 minority-owned businesses now had contracts that had never existed before. The woman who'd been publicly humiliated for wasting time had triggered over $500 million in fraud recoveries. Sarah Lawson stood at her window that evening, the city lights stretching out like proof that one person's choice can rewrite the rules. The drive that had once been her only belonging was now a symbol in the SEC's whistleblower museum. One fired accountant. One yellow legal pad, one decision. The system is still breaking, and she's still here. 3 years after she walked out of that glass office, Sarah Lawson sat before a Senate subcommittee.
It started with a yellow legal pad and $80 million. Today, our algorithms flag exclusion patterns in real time.
The committee members, once skeptical, leaned forward as she described the abuse of shell companies to exclude minority vendors. By the following Monday, the SEC had issued an emergency rule. All public companies must disclose vendor diversity data. The chair of the SEC appointed Sarah to the Federal Whistleblower Protection Advisory Board. Time magazine put her on the cover under a single stark word: Hunter. In her office, the framed legal pad now hung beside a screen crawling with live procurement data from 40 firms. Her phone lit up again. 3 more blocked numbers. Whistleblowers didn't wait for business hours. She was finishing a forensic algorithm designed to scan entire supply chains for exclusion bias, the first of its kind. The woman who'd been fired for wasting time had changed the definition of waste. Now the system measured what it had ignored. Even after the Senate hearing, even after the time cover, she came back to this: a yellow legal pad, a thumb drive, and a quiet office at dawn.
They gave me a seat on the board. They gave me rules to write. But the best thing I ever did was keep walking that Friday.
The thumb drive, still the same yellow circle, still the same 12 gigabytes of evidence, now lived behind museum glass. Outside her window, the city's financial towers blinked awake, each one a database of contracts, each one potentially hiding another trail.
It never stops, and I don't want it to.
She sat at her desk, opened a fresh yellow legal pad, hers from a stack by the printer, and wrote in red pen, Case number 27. Behind her, the framed original pad held the same red ink from 3 years ago, the ink that had never dried. One fired accountant. $80 million, 4 CEOs, 340%, and a system that will never be able to claim it didn't see. The sign outside remained what it had always been: Lawson Forensic Accounting. But now, it didn't just promise audits. It promised inevitability. Sarah capped the pen and looked at the pad. Case number 27 was waiting. She was ready. The dawn inked the sky over the city she'd already changed. Her office was silent, but the pad was full. Red ink sat drying on the yellow page. The name of another shell company, the coordinates of another offshore account.
Some people call it obsession. I call it seeing the pattern they hope no one else will see.
She lifted the framed original from the wall, set it beside the new pad. The red arrows from 3 years ago still pointed forward.
That Friday, they thought they were throwing me away, but they just threw me into the only fight that ever made sense.
The phone buzzed. Another blocked number, another auditor too scared to use their own name. She didn't pick it up. Not yet. For 1 more minute, she wanted to look at the pads, the old and the new, and know that the system had already lost.
Case 27 will still be there in 60 seconds. Let it ring.
Then she reached for it. The voice on the line was trembling, but Sarah's was steady.
This is Sarah Lawson. Tell me everything.